Hey everybody, I'm Michael Steele in for Ayman Moeddin. Welcome to Ayman. Tonight, nowhere to hide. Trump's legal strategy dismantled by a New York judge. Now he may be forced to testify in that case. Plus, putting Putin in a box. How President Biden's working to get the upper hand as a Russian invasion into Ukraine grows increasingly likely. Former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, will join us. And the $73 million settlement families of the Sandy Hook victims have received, and they've agreed to settle a lawsuit brought against the gunmaker. That made the murder weapon. We'll speak to a mother who lost her son that day about this victory and how to keep the momentum going. Let's get started. It's been a bad week for anyone with the last name Trump. On Thursday, a New York judge issued a bombshell ruling in that state's investigation into Donald Trump's finances. Not only must Trump now produce a trove of documents that he's been withholding, but he and two of his children, Ivanka and Don Jr., are being ordered to testify in the case. That ruling followed a messy public breakup between Trump and his now former accounting firm, Mazars. Last week, Mazars cut ties with the Trump organization after it said nearly a decade's worth of Trump accounting statements should, quote, no longer be relied upon. The Trump camp tried to claim that this means there was no need to continue the investigation into Trump Org. But Manhattan Supreme Court Judge Arthur Engoron was having none of that. In a scathing ruling, he compared Trump's argument to Lewis Carroll's Humpty Dumpty, basically saying that Trump uses words to mean whatever he wants them to mean. In other words, he's presenting a case not grounded in reality. During Thursday's hearing, Trump's lawyer said that if he was compelled to testify, he would advise his client to plead the fifth, since his testimony could incriminate him in a separate criminal investigation from the Manhattan District Attorney. Let's roll the tape to see what Trump had to say about pleading the fifth back in 2016.
Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Horrible. Horrible.
There are 5 people taking the Fifth Amendment, like you see on the mob, right? You see the mob takes the Fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
Now, that's a great question, Mr. Trump. You have less than 3 weeks to answer that for yourself. And that's only some of Trump's mounting legal troubles. This week, a D.C. Superior Court judge added the Trump Org back into an ongoing lawsuit about the Trump Inaugural Committee. Just yesterday, the National Archives confirmed it found classified material among the boxes of White House documents Trump improperly took to Mar-a-Lago. And that was after President Biden ordered the National Archives to turn over Trump's White House visitors' logs to the January 6th committee. Now, on top of that, a D.C. judge declined to throw out a lawsuit filed against Trump by members of Congress over the insurrection. The growing legal pressure seems to be pushing Trump up against a wall. Now, can someone remind me what happened to Humpty Dumpty when he found himself back on that wall? Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee and a former impeachment manager for Trump's second impeachment. Congressman, welcome. It's so great to see you tonight.
Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely. Now let's start with the National Archives. That story is really significant because the agency has acknowledged it's been in communication with the Department of Justice over those boxes of classified records found at Mar-a-Lago. Now, do you think the Justice Department should open a formal investigation into this matter? Where do you see that going?
Thank you, Michael, for your question. When I served on active duty in the Air Force, I had a top secret security clearance. If I ate classified documents, as alleged against former President Trump, or if I flushed classified documents down the toilet, or if I took classified documents to my home, I would have been court-martialed. Donald Trump is a former commander-in-chief. I would hope that the Justice Department would open an investigation because Trump remains and is a walking national security liability.
Yeah, and I know a little bit about eating that paper thing. We had a little fun with that last week, and it really kind of speaks to where Trump's mind is in a lot of this. But he's also having to deal with the National Archives saying, look, you've also got to turn over the White House visitor logs. Why is that information so valuable in the investigation into the insurrection?
So when I was a House impeachment manager, we knew that January 6th wasn't just a one-day thing. It was something that not only was an attack on our nation's capital, but there was planning for that January 6th attack, and then there were consequences that flowed from it. And so we would like to know who visited Donald Trump at the White House and who communicated with him potentially about January 6th. And I'm very pleased that this information will be turned over to investigators.
So after the statement from Trump's former accounting firm, Mazars, your House colleagues on the Oversight Committee urged the General Service Administration, the agency that's handling Trump's D.C. hotel lease, to terminate its contract before the former president can sell that property. Now, if they don't, Trump is looking to make about $100 million off of that sale. Are you satisfied with how the GSA is handling this? Because, you know, there could be some profit here for Trump for probably putting some bad information into the deal.
So there's no problem if it's a legitimate business transaction, but we wouldn't know if it's legitimate if all the financial documents and all their finances are wrong. And that's what is so significant about what the accounting firm Mazars did. Fraud is fraud, and it doesn't matter whether you're the former president or you're an ordinary American. If you engage in fraud, then I don't see how any future bank or business should be able to trust you.
So just to follow up on what you mentioned earlier as a manager of the 2021 second impeachment of Donald Trump, you were a manager of that in which he was acquitted. During that proceeding, a year later, what do you think of where Donald Trump is in being held accountable for the actions that he took as president at that time?
So I want to note that it was the most bipartisan impeachment in U.S. history. It was a bipartisan impeachment vote out of the House. And in the Senate, he actually wasn't acquitted. He just wasn't convicted, because you actually need a 2/3 vote on the Constitution to convict him. But we had an overwhelming majority, bipartisan, of U.S. senators who did vote for conviction. And now what we're seeing local and federal investigators look at all the other things that he did, some of which potentially could be crimes. So we're going to see what these offices do, and we're just going to have to wait and see where the investigations lead.
Congressman, I appreciate you taking a moment to stop in to get our conversation started tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.